All right, teammates, we are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the number one show on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. Looking forward to having you back for more. To my regular listeners, you already know how I get down. You know what I like to call myself at times, Mr. ABC. Always be connecting. And ironically, I learned that from a good friend that has been on the show, Miss J Lo, Jessica Lopez. J Lo, man, we were part of the Life Vantage Group, and she had a bunch of great business entrepreneurs that she introduced me to. And ironically, the guy I have on today is one of the people that was in that group, and we kind of lost touch a little bit, but we kept up on social media. And as this election season came about, and I was listening to some other folks that look like, particularly black males, and I was listening to how they were saying things that I actually agreed with, like really listening. I saw Jay on Fox News. I'm like, wait a minute. I know that dude. I know him, and he's spitting the truth, saying the things that saying the things that we all need to be saying out loud, and he's actually doing it. So I was like, yo, I got to get him on the show. We got to really chop it up, man. So all that being said, Jay, welcome to the show.
Thanks, bro. Thanks for having me on, man. Yeah, we lost that connection, like you said, for a minute, but we always bring it back together. So super grateful to be on.
And that's the power. And before we even get into the subject, that's the power of staying course, of staying focused, and staying on your grind, and really staying connected with the right people, folks. I cannot emphasize that enough. It's your job to stay in tune when it comes to if you're serious about being successful, if you're serious about being in business. All right. So, all that being said, I remember that you had like a consulting business, and you spent some time in the Marines, and you came up understanding the value of having solid principles. So to start things off, why don't we just kind of dive into your background a little bit, and then we'll go into, I know you have something now called Disruptive Leadership, and you help people get leads and things like that. We'll get into that after you kind of give your background a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm probably like everybody else, man. I won't give you the Kamala Harris version of I'm from a single parent home,
Oh my,
but I'm a
on that
military.
point, I swear I used to lose. If it had like the guy that you had were on with Anton Daniels, I
Yep,
could
yep,
not watch your interviews without Anton Daniels commentary. Without him and because I couldn't take it. Like as much again, I'm a Caribbean man. I'm a black Caribbean
right,
man. Of
right.
course, I'm a former high school football coach. Identity wise, I would have loved to see somebody in there that you love, but they got to be damn qualified. I'm like, I can't take it. So
Right, right.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I'll touch on that just for a second. I think that at the end of the day, man, we have to understand that, identity works when certain scenarios, but not in every scenario. And on
Yeah.
this one, I just think they missed the mark on this one.
Or some substance or something. Like we're not stupid. Like we're gonna see if you're qualified or not. But anyway, we won't start there. So go
Well,
ahead.
yeah, so I'm like most folks, man. Just I am from a single parent home. No pun intended. I'm a military brat. My stepdad moved us across the country a lot when I was a kid. Of course, didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth. Had some hard times, like most folks do, when we're growing up. But one of the decisions that I made, it was actually the Air Force I joined, and it was one of the best decisions I ever made. If
Mhm.
not for my time in the military, I wouldn't be the man that I am today. I wouldn't understand the power of teamwork, leadership, systems, processes, etc.
Right.
And so, since transitioning out of the military, I've been into entrepreneurship and business ownership full time now for about 10 years, or a little over 10 years.
Hmm.
And it's a joy, man. It's like riding a boat out in the middle of an ocean sometimes, and the waves can get choppy.
Right.
But then sometimes there are some smooth sailing. So I just love helping people serve, make a positive impact, and live in a prosperous life, whether that's financially in their relationships, spiritually, or even in their health.
Right. So when we're talking more specifically about the military, I'd love for you to dive into some more details about that because I have a colleague, he was actually on the show too. Shout out to Ed if you're listening. He was former military, and even now, every Sunday, I do this thing with a lady named Kimberly Blue called Stay Hired Sunday, and she looks to serve veterans when it comes to figuring out where they need to be employed, exactly how they need to go about getting a job and stuff like that. And one of the common themes is they don't don't know their worth because they have a service mindset. So when you come and you leave the military and it's like, okay, I'm in the real world and I have to sort of sell myself for a job. You guys aren't really, it doesn't come naturally because your mindset is service, 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 service. So can you speak to that transition a little bit and how you were able to adjust when you were so used to this is what I got to do for my country, this is how I serve my people, but now I got to go in and I got to sort of propaganda, I got to sell myself, I got to use identity to get a job and all that, and you're not used to that, you know?
Yeah, I understand that transition very well. When I
Mhm.
came out of the military, it wasn't by choice. If it was up to me, I'd still be in the Air Force today. But with the drawdown from the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, a couple 100,000 of us had to find our next opportunity. And
Mhm.
so my landing was really hard. I went through stress, depression, anxiety, probably, anger,
Right.
frustration, you name the emotions on any spectrum. I've been through them. And that's because you literally serve. Like you put your life on the line for your country. You raise your right hand and say, I will support and defend this country against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. And now, for
Mhm.
many of us, some of us as early as 17 years of age, but some of us, or most of us, 18, 19, we become military members and they completely strip us of our identity as a civilian. Whatever you thought you were, it no longer exists. And so
Oh
they
my
then
God.
rebuild you and remold and shape you into a soldier, sailor, airman, marine, or Coast Guardsman, or even now, I don't know, I think it's called a space person or something along those lines with the Space Force. But
Mhm.
once you transition out, you have to reinvent yourself. Yes, we are committed. We are mission driven. We are purpose driven people. And
Mhm.
so I think the most difficult part is for a lot of us when we transition, we don't rediscover or we don't join a new mission. And so we spiral out of control because there's not a lot of systems and processes and infrastructure in place because you think about it, whether you do 4 years or 24 years, you have a place to be every morning. You don't leave until it's up. And then while you're on, your shift, there's structure, there's rules, there's SOPs, there's, policies and procedures that you have to follow. And then when you become a civilian, you're like, what the hell is this chaos that I'm going through? Because most civilians lack a mission or purpose. They lack discipline, lack structure, lack teamwork and leadership, unfortunately. And so when we come out, it's like you got to learn how to be a civilian again, right? And so when you're in that process of trying to learn what it means to now be a civilian as an adult,
Mhm.
you're now also trying to learn how to engage and connect and build relationships with people who you, one, don't understand and they don't understand you either, because you come from a different culture, and a different mentality than most people do.
Right. So there was a first of all, thank you for your transparency, and I know it's not easy to share about your depression and the things that you were going through when you left. But the big thing that you listeners have got to take away from that, especially if you are listening and you are former military or you even former athlete, former anything that you were
Hmm.
driven to do whatever it is you had to do, and the day came in which it's like, hey, I can't do it anymore. He
Right.
said mission, 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 mission in bold, blaring light signs. Mission is that first step. All right.
Yeah.
And I've lived through some similar. I couldn't play football anymore. I was lost, depressed. Again, I had an injury. It was like, oh my God, I got to find something. But the mission of doing something that I love, that's what pulled me out. I'm going to go take a run. I'm going to start doing the good things. So when you're speaking about mission, what kinds of things do you do now to help people figure out what their mission needs to be on? Because that's something that a lot of people struggle with. Even the colleague that I referred to earlier, him as a teacher, he has a lot of experience with security and doing IT and all this stuff. But one of the things he actually struggles with is the mission of this place. And his son goes to the school, so that's one of the things that made him go to school. But the mission of it, it's so hard to find it, especially when you're tied up in a world that, again, they all only talk about money. Again, we pay you this, you shut up and do this. All of a sudden, you know what I'm saying? So like when it comes to mission, can you speak a little bit about how a person can find that mission and figure out how to really just tap in and find some sort of a crack of where, all right, I'm gonna go in that way.
Yeah, so for me, it's everything that I do to this day is about mission. So when people say, "Hey, thank you for your service," I tell people I'm still serving. I'm just in a different uniform. And
Yep.
so when you are a mission driven or purpose driven person, or you're trying to discover what your mission is, the most important thing is you have to really discover like why. And if you there's an exercise that I recommend to people, it's literally just sit down and create a list of reasons why. And
Mhm.
if your list is at 5, put a little bit more time in it till you get to 50. If your list is at 50, put a little bit more time in it till you get to 100. And the reason why I recommend that is because you're all along the way, you're always going to face challenges and setbacks or some unexpected scenarios that you could never prepare for. And that's just life, that's business. But when you face those challenges and setbacks, and in the early stages, what you'll likely do is you'll literally refer back to that list and start to read off that list.
Exactly.
And as long as you have enough reasons why this is important to you, in some cases, it doesn't have to be as extreme as I'm willing to die for this, but it will become, at least for me, I can speak from my experience, I'm willing to die for this. And I tell people that I'm going to do the work that I'm doing until the day that I die. That's how committed I am to it. I want to help as many people as possible avoid some of the imposter syndrome, the sabotaging behaviors, all the things that keep us from living and becoming the greatest version of ourselves. Because in becoming that greatest version, that's how, we achieve our mission, number one. But then all the other things come, the opportunities come, the money comes, the relationships come. But you have to be driven by your mission, which should be rooted in your values. And I think a lot of times, a lot of people just aren't clear. Like I had to make a huge shift in my own values because while in the military, I was operating from the Air Force's values. Not that those values were bad values, service before self, excellence in all we do, and integrity first. Phenomenal values. And I still operate within those values, but
Mhm.
they're no longer my primary values.
Love that.
And I think once people begin to establish their own individual values and their beliefs align with their values, that's when they begin to take the actions that need to be taken in
Yes.
order for you to operate in your mission.
Yes, and on that point, I want to make sure everyone understands as well. You all have a why. There's no single human being in this world that doesn't have a why. I don't want to hear the excuse, oh, that person been through this and that person been through that. Oh, so that person has a bunch of no. You have a why. Every single there's not one perfect situation at all in any situation. All right. You have a why. You have something that really pulls on your heartstrings, and it's on you to actually express it and figure out what it is. I'll give you a great example. Just yesterday, again, we're recording this, by the way, guys, the day after Thanksgiving. So had a ton of family members here, over 50 people over at this house, and the house I grew up in Silver Spring, Maryland. And my uncle, who you would think, again, always fun, always having fun, drinking, having fun, do whatever it is. They asked him to say grace, and he started getting teary-eyed. He started crying, just thinking about everyone in one area. His mother, my grandmother, passed away a couple of years ago, and to know that we were all still here kicking strong, that brought him to tears when it was supposed to be kind of a fun environment. But you just never know what's triggering someone. You never know what's on someone's heart. You never know when someone's going to actually say, hey, I need to get this off my chest and I need to actually express this. So I think it's really powerful what you shared in terms of sitting alone and figuring out what that why is. And it's between you and you, folks. It got nothing to do with nobody else. Express it, write it down, get clear on it, because then you're able to serve the world. And that brings me to the next thing I want to talk to you about, because as soon as you left the military, did you get like right into consulting? Who were the clients that you were looking to attract, and how difficult was it to really just get established when it comes to, because again, I could see someone meeting you and be like, okay, he's kind of intense, or how were you able to find the right people to serve and then ultimately, build a business around that?
Yeah, so I definitely dove head first over into it because, like I said, getting out of the military wasn't my choice, and so I had like 11 grand, saved in like a little retirement account, and that went by super quick.
Oh yeah.
I was a full-time single dad with a mortgage and car payment, so that just vanished like ashes, man. So
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah,
I dove in.
I gotta applaud you on that, because
Yeah,
that just hit me like, oh my gosh. Anybody out there making excuses, I don't want to hear nothing. And I deal with a lot of single parents, a lot of people making a whole lot of excuses out there. That man just broke down the numbers and to the car payment, which you need your car if you're gonna have kids, right?
sure,
But you
sure.
made sure he made it work. So kudos to you on that, brother.
Yeah, man, I think, for a lot of us when we um when we dive into something, and I'm going to give you a little context,
Yeah,
and
go
then I'm
ahead.
going to come back and answer your question.
Hmm.
Like when we don't realize, and I was talking to my sister and my wife about this literally this morning.
Hmm.
We have to dive into it. We have to take the action first
Hmm.
in order for the resources, the people, the opportunities to present themselves. So a lot of times, at least in the culture, Southern Baptist, where I grew up.
Hmm.
Everybody's always talking about, oh, I'm waiting on God. Oh, I'm waiting on the Lord to show me. Oh, no, God's not, don't need you to wait on him to do nothing. God's already did what God needed to do. It's up to you to take massive action. And there's
Hmm.
always going to be someone with a scenario or a situation that's worse than yours. So you can swim around in that pig slop if you want to, or you can take
Right.
massive action and change your results.
Mhm.
So for me, it was very intense. Like I was living in Macon, Georgia, about an hour and a half south of Atlanta, and I would go into different organizations, just literally looking for opportunities to serve, right? Because that's literally was my DNA
You
and my
weren't
makeup.
you weren't wearing that shirt though, were you?
No, I wasn't wearing a shirt, not at the time. At
Making
least
sure you
not when
were
I went into these business meetings, I wasn't.
okay, bro. Just have to make sure we broke that down. All
But
right.
you can best believe,
Just say
anytime
he wearing a
outside of
band.
that, though, I'm rocking my Bama shirt.
All right. Just making sure
But
you all
yeah,
right.
man. So I was in a meeting one day, and this lady came up to me afterwards, and she was like, "Hey, like, where are you from?"
Mhm.
And I said, I lived in Warner Robins, which was like a neighboring small town to
Yeah, oh
Macon.
yeah, I've heard of you. I heard of Roberts. Mhm.
And she goes, no, 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 like, where are you from? And I was
Mhm.
like, oh, okay. I said, I'm from Birmingham, Alabama.
Right.
And she goes, really? Now she's like, but you don't sound like it and you don't act like it. I said, well, I'm stationed out at Robins Air Force Base. I've been out there for 12 years. And she was like, ah, that's it. And I was like, what's it? And she goes, yeah, you stick out like a sore thumb around here. Nobody thinks like that. Nobody talks like that. Nobody behaves that way around here. And right then and there's like a light bulb moment came on for me. And I was like, okay, so if who I am and the military is the reason why I am the way that I am,
Yeah, I got
and
you.
this is what's differentiating me from other civilians within my community, I
Right.
saw it as a huge opportunity to be able to take what I gained, what I learned, my education, training, and experience while in the military, and then help civilians gain a lot of that, like
Uh,
teach, train it, and
got you.
coach
Right,
it into
right,
civilians.
right.
And so, of course, it was difficult, where I was because a very rural, very small town, very small minded, very kind of status quo. I ain't gonna say kind of,
Exactly. Right,
definitely status quo.
right.
And so, of course, I went in, and there was resistance. People want to maintain their comfort zones. People want to stay doing things the way that they are. But at the same time, if you really believe that this is something that you should be doing, this is your calling, your mission, your purpose, then you're willing to endure, any setbacks or name calling and things like that. And so, it started out with me going into like nonprofit organizations, even as city governments, chambers of commerce and things like that, working with them on certain projects. And then once we started to grow, we've kind of evolved and created basically our own, mastermind group, and we call it Disruptive Leadership Alliance, specifically for experts, leaders, and online entrepreneurs.
Right. So before we started recording, I was actually listening to a video where you talked about the idea of creating raving fans, and you used Trump as an example. But even before Trump, I heard the first person I heard talk about raving fans was Tony Robbins, and he would break down business as just innovation and marketing. And when you look at some of the lessons that you look to pass on to these people, because like you just mentioned, it's difficult to start, especially we're talking consulting because you're fighting mindset, you're fighting human nature, you're fighting folks who have this, especially in a small town. You have this thing done this way. This is the way business works, and we're just going to accept it. So when you're talking about actually changing folks' minds, you have to really bring a level of expertise to a specific area. So as you're explaining that to people and you're trying to get people to understand it, what are the steps that you're taking? Like what's the free stuff you sort of give away, I guess, and make them know, let them know, hey, this is something that's for real. And this is something you eventually need to invest in. What's that process like?
Yeah, so the very first step is just identifying what their present pain is.
Yes.
We're as with any, business, consultancy, or even a physical product business, every business is created because of your own personal pain or the pain of others. And
Yes.
so what the first step is we just want to get super clear on, okay, what is your pain? And you want them to be as free flowing and, and expressive as possible because all of their response to that question is going to give you all of the information that you need
Hmm.
in order to move through the process. And so they'll tell you what their pains are. They'll tell you basically, why they think they are in that particular pain. They'll tell you what's keeping them, from getting whatever the desire and the outcome is.
Hmm.
And so as you're asking basically open-ended type questions, consultative questions, I like to look at myself like a doctor when you go to the doctor's office, where the doctor just asks you, okay, well, what's the pain? What all have you tried? What is the ultimate, feeling or ultimate result that you want?
Yeah.
And then the doctor basically sits down and says, all right, well, here's the process that we're going to go through to help you get from where you are to where you want to be. And then the most important thing after we go through that process, we ask, what is it costing you? Like, what is it costing you right now? Whether it's time, whether it's relationships, whether it's money, whether it's your energy, what is it costing you to stay in your current state?
Right.
And then what would your life be like whenever you do have the Tylenol to this headache or the solution to this problem that you're currently experiencing? And once you gather all of that information, that's when you're able to say, okay, I think this, whether it's an individual in a B2C environment or a B2B environment, if you're, working with businesses and organizations, you then get to decide who you want to serve and who you want to work with as your clients.
Right.
And that, to me, I think that's the most refreshing and fulfilling part of the work that I do is, I get to pick and choose who I work with, and I don't have to settle for people who I think you touched on it earlier, who make a bunch of excuses and complain,
Exactly.
have that victim mentality.
Exactly. And then to that point, when you're talking about pain and diagnosing pain, it's sometimes it's not verbal. Sometimes, especially if we're going to even use the example of Life Vantage, I spoke to folks, and even J-Lo can confirm this story. I spoke to folks that were taking about 100 different pills a day. They were
Mhm.
on diabetes. I mean, their solution to a problem was just, hey, I'm going to go buy more drugs and I'm
Right,
going to buy more drugs and I'm going to be safe because the government's going to take care of me and all that. But the minute
right.
them one pill, okay, they don't want to hear it. So sometimes nonverbal, yeah, the nonverbal is like, okay, that's a person I don't even want to work with because they're not even open enough
Mhm.
to express their pain. They're not even open enough to be honest with what they're actually going through. So when you speak on the folks that you do want to work with, what kind of a mindset do you see in your ideal client? And what kinds of things do you go after when it comes to your outreach and reaching out to people and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, to be quite honest with you, man, I want to look in the mirror, for example. Like, do I see within a person the same characteristics that I admire in myself, right? As
I'm listening. Go
yeah,
ahead.
as leaders, our responsibility is to grow and become the greatest versions of ourselves. And so whenever I'm sitting down and having a conversation, consultative type conversation with a, potential client, student, mentee, I'm looking to see what kind of mental character traits are they expressing. What do they value? Do we share similar values? Are they sincere about, serving people and helping people? Are they sincere about making an impact? And then are they sincere about living prosperously? I touched on prosperity earlier, and I know a lot of people think that prosperity is only about money, but I think, health, relationships, even the experiences that we have, like you touched on earlier about your uncle, normally being kind of the free-spirited, carefree, have fun kind of guy. But when he was given the opportunity to pray,
Mhm.
it created a phenomenal experience. And so I want to work
And
with people
Uncle
who,
Banks, if you're listening, we have that on video too. So I'm just letting you know. So you
what'd you
can't.
say? We got proof,
We
indisputable
got proof,
evidence.
brother. It's on video. It's not leaving my phone. That's all I'm saying. All right, but go ahead.
Yeah, but no, bro. I mean, that's pretty much it, man. I look for people who, just there's a mentality
Mhm.
about a person that, and I tell people it's noticeable.
Yeah.
Some of us have it, and and then some of us just don't. And it's not a knock on anyone who doesn't, because I believe that everyone can gain it and everyone can develop different skills and different mindsets.
Mhm.
But when you can listen to a person, like you can really see and hear their heart. You can hear what they're passionate about. You can hear whether they're goal oriented, whether they're driven. You can like there was a guy. I'll tell you, it was a real quick story, and it's kind of made me chuckle. But I shared something in my story a couple of weeks ago, and I honestly I don't even remember exactly what I shared, but this guy, and I could probably go to my Facebook Messenger and pull it up, but this guy
Mhm.
pulled comments on my story, and he says, and you're crazy. Like that was all he said is like, you're crazy.
Right.
And sometimes I'll get a little cheeky with people, and I was like, and you're a beta male. And he comes and he literally came back to me and says, you're right. And it blew my mind that
Mhm.
I was throwing rocks back at him, right? So like he
Mhm.
called me crazy. I said,
Right.
you're a beta male, and that was just kind of my way of letting him know this is what I think about you.
Mhm.
And he says, you're right. And then maybe an hour or so later, he invited me to be on his podcast. Now, we had a phenomenal, conversation with each other, but it's certain things like, that when I have conversations with people where I'm able to just kind of look and say, okay, who
Mhm.
is this person? Like, where are they? What pains or challenges are they really experiencing? Because a lot of times when people say certain things, it's not about you. It's
Mhm.
really them. Like it's really something that they might be struggling with. And I think as leaders, we just have a responsibility. And this is something I took away from that exchange
Mhm.
is I didn't I was just in a space. When he said it, I was in a space and I said what I said to him. But that relationship has now led to us having a conversation about me doing something in his Facebook group. And so it's amazing how sometimes when we're looking for certain things or we react or respond a certain way, we come across people who need what you have to offer.
Mhm.
In his case, that's literally what it is. He wants to be a better leader. He wants to be a better father. He wants to
Right.
change lives and make an impact. But if we wouldn't have had that simple exchange, we
Mhm.
would have never even came across each other. So it's amazing how sometimes those things happen.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up because in the current setting I'm in, I'm recording this in one of the only states I believe that was actually blue. And I was definitely concerned as I was flying from Florida here I'm glad that politics didn't really come up in the family and all that, in the family dinners and all that. Again,
Right, right.
I know we didn't bring up politics too much because they know I was going to let them know that America made the right decision. I have my stuff ready for it, but it didn't come up. It didn't come up.
Right.
I bring that up because you face a lot of resistance. You face a lot of people that may say some things about you that are just, again, are the opposite of what they're saying they want to be because black
Mm,
male and, okay, he's a public endorser of Trump. When in reality, when I listen to you, you're not necessarily endorsing Trump as much as you are showing his tactics, his abilities, the positive things that he's able to do, and teaching people how to implement it in their business. There's literally a a YouTube video that you guys can go to right now where he uses Trump's tactics of creating raving fans and he transitions that and how you could be using that for your business. That's not necessarily someone that's supporting an individual. That's a person that's trying to teach you how to use what's working and apply it to your business. Ain't got nothing to do with race. Ain't got nothing to do with color. Ain't got nothing to do with the gender or whatever, Republican, Democrat, whatever you want to use to separate yourself has nothing to do with that. So can you speak on how you were able to become so like you're able to handle these attacks so easily and you're able to just move for like, okay, that's funny, and then you're able to come back. Like I've read some of your posts and it's like those shots do not affect you at all. Like you just come on with it, baby. We can go all day. So
yeah.
just speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, so let me, in full honesty, it wasn't always like that. Like
That's
there
what I'm
were
saying. It has
times,
to be a level of growth because when
yeah,
you're around it, you realize, man, these folks are lying. They're
yeah.
lying, and then you have to grow into it.
Yeah, one thing I've learned over the years, I had she wasn't a mentor for me, but she was a speaker at an event that I attended. Oh man, probably 8, 9 years ago now.
Hmm.
And one of the things that she said, and she used it in the money context because she's a wealth advisor, and she said, "You'll never become wealthy as long as you care about what people think." And so, of course, you hear it and you kind of go, "Ooh, that was a good one." So 8, 9
Hmm.
years, I was like, "Ooh, that's a good one."
Right.
But then when you start to put yourself out there and what you're doing is we're genuinely just trying to help. Like I can see, like you said, I saw some things from my own study, my own experience that
Right.
Donald Trump was doing. And I was like, yo, y'all, this is what he's doing. Like, just do this right here.
Right. Right.
And you unfortunately, some people can't separate valuable information from
Hmm.
their own personal feelings or
Yeah.
their own emotions
Yeah.
from the realities and of life, right? Of the
Yeah.
world that we live in.
Exactly.
And we I've had a couple conversations with people that talk about Trump derangement syndrome, and some
Oh yeah,
people
I've heard that
were
a lot. Yeah.
yeah, some people weren't voting for Kamala Harris. They were voting against Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And for me, growing up, like you said, you guys didn't talk about politics much at your Thanksgiving dinner.
Right.
But for me, growing up, we didn't talk about politics at all. There was just a natural,
Hmm.
just kind of you accepted. This is what everyone else is voting, or this is what everyone else
Yeah.
believes, and so that's just naturally what you
It
do.
was right. Mhm.
And over the years, what I started to do, and this is while I was in Baghdad, Iraq, believe it or not, President Obama is the one that forced me to begin to critically think about a lot of things. So
Exactly.
while in Baghdad, Iraq, I mean, literally, I felt like
This,
every day I probably could have died. Go ahead.
this is 08, right? Because we
So I'm in Baghdad from December of '09 to
right, we had just put him in office, right?
yeah, to June of 2010.
Mhm.
And so at that time, like most black people, or especially young black men,
Yeah,
we
listen, I
admire.
wouldn't care if it wasn't for. I would not care about politics. I was right there
Yeah, like
with
Sue.
my dad you just met. We
Right?
voted together. I mean, I'll never forget the glow in his eyes when he won. I was like,
Yeah,
I was in like the moment he created for all black men. That's
yeah,
something that I would never ever forget, and I
for
close
sure.
really close to my heart because that was a beautiful moment. But then, like you said,
Yeah,
you really start opening your eyes and listening, and like, oh, hold up, there's
yeah.
some things going on. So anyway, go
No,
ahead.
no, no. So it's like we all were. We were all like, okay, like there's one of us in this office now. We should all pay attention now because if one of us can make it, we all can make it. We all can do some
Yes.
things different. And so we need to pay attention to the nuggets he's dropping so we
Yep.
can figure out how we can
How
get to
we
the
could.
top of the game, right?
That was my first time ever
So
voting too. I was at that age. I was sophomore in college at that point.
nice. Yeah,
19
man.
years old.
And so I'm in Baghdad. It's June 2010. I'm getting ready to come home. I'm super excited. I had been there for 6 months, and he did a State of the Union address.
Mhm.
And this is how I got on Fox. I won't go too deep into it, but this is how I ended up on Fox.
Right.
But he was doing a State of the Union address, and he was saying some things, and I was hanging on to every word. But then he started to say some things, and I know the president is probably 20,000 miles removed from things that happen, boots on the ground wise.
Yeah.
But I do believe that, his message is the message that, everybody's listening to and paying attention to. And so he started to talk about the state of things and specifically some things that were happening in regards to us pulling out of Iraq and pulling out of Afghanistan.
Hmm.
And as he was saying it, I'm literally ground zero, Baghdad, Iraq, and I'm looking around going,
Wow.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, this dude is not telling
Wow.
the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God. Now, again, I respect
Hmm.
that the president has to do what he has to do to share a specific message to the people, and he
Yeah.
can't give away secret, top secret information.
Right.
But this wasn't top secret information. And
Yeah.
because I was boots on the ground, I had a level of insight that most people wouldn't have. And so when he started to say certain things, I was like, hold up, we're building sidewalks, we're building streets, we're
Mhm.
erecting buildings, but you're saying we're leaving here. And
Mhm.
these actions don't line up with the words of we're gonna leave here. So
Right.
right then and there, I started to question a lot of things. Since
Right.
then, I've questioned thousands of things.
Mhm.
But right then and there, I questioned a lot of things. And so I just started to think critically. And over the years, I started to, pay attention to politics, like you said, a little bit more. I listened very closely. I watched some world events, of course, not knowing
Mhm.
all of the details. But what I would always do is I never allow myself to become indoctrinated by
Mhm.
uh, one political perspective media group, right? Like most people listen to one
Mhm.
channel and they do not change the channel. And
Exactly.
so because they never change the channel, they become indoctrinated by the propaganda, whether it's left wing, right wing. This is not a knock on any group.
Mhm.
Either party, both sides, you become indoctrinated and you become an extremist, and that programming and that conditioning, it becomes deep and it becomes your beliefs, and you begin to make decisions based off of that. But what I started to do is I started to kind of play tennis, man, where I would bounce back and forth between, all
Exactly.
MSNBC and Fox and
Yes.
BBC, and I would just listen to them all.
Yeah.
And as they say with everything, there's the his story, her story, and then the truth is
Sure.
right in the middle.
Right.
And
Right.
so, because I bounced back and forth through the different media sources, I was able to kind of compare and contrast, what was being said about Trump positively, say on Fox, and then what was being said negatively about him on CNN.
How they were saying it is important
And
too.
then I was able to bring them both together and go, okay.
Yeah.
Now, is he a man? He's a man.
Yeah.
Does he have flaws in his character? Yes, every man does. Will he always say or do the thing that's going to be pleasing to everyone? No, that's not leadership. Leaders, you will never be able to please 100% of the people 100% of the time.
Right.
However, when I look at the state of our country and I look at the state of the world,
Mhm.
and I have to now make a decision on what I believe is best for my family
Yeah.
and what I value. That's what drove my decision to not vote for Trump, but
Mhm.
I voted for what Trump was presenting in terms of his policies and the things that he felt was important, or at least his staff and his team was telling him, sir,
Mhm.
these are the things that are most important, and these are the things that you should be talking about.
Yeah.
And so his messages, his delivery, I'll be honest with you, I'm
Yeah.
not a I'm more of a, like I said to you earlier, I got a little more alpha male in me than probably some other folks might have, and that's okay. And
Mhm.
so whenever I'm making a decision on who I'm going to go into battle with, or who I'm going to go into war with, or who I'm going to follow, or
Mhm.
who I'm going to allow to lead me, there's certain characteristics that I look for. And love him or hate him, I'd go to war behind him before I would go to war behind her.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you said that. First of all, thank you for laying all that out. That was very, very important for a lot of people to hear because as you were talking, I was starting to write down critical thinker, and you said the word critical. You said the word be very critical. And one of the things, actually, technically, three of the things that really struck me throughout the entire process is one, I have an aunt that lives in Miami that hates Trump beyond belief. I have a colleague, the only other black colleague that I have outside of my boy Ant, who just started working there. But he, when I say hates Trump, I mean he literally walks around West Palm Beach, bro, having shirts saying F Trump, like walking around West Palm Beach with that. And then it was JD Vance, the quote unquote never Trumper, that he used to be a never Trumper. So I asked my aunt and I asked the colleague, I'm like, okay, is there one nice thing you could say about Donald Trump? Give me one nice thing. I mean, there's something, I don't care how angry or how much you hate a person, there's one nice thing I could say about the Ohio State Buckeyes, right? There's one, you know what I'm saying? There's one thing that you could say that says, okay, all right, I don't like this, but there has to be one nice thing. And the fact that neither of them can say anything positive about him, and then the fact that he would pick a vice president that was at one point a never Trump, I'm like, oh, this guy just wants what's best for the country. Like
Mhm.
whether it's like he doesn't care what you said about him before, he didn't care, take nothing personal. I'm talking about JD. I did a whole show on this. It is on camera where JD Vance has said he would never vote for the guy, and now he's his VP. That tells you he's somebody who's willing to make the sacrifices that a leader needs to make. That is what you have to take away from it. You have to understand thinking critically is about saying, I'm going to let go of what happened yesterday. I'm going to let go of the egos, and who's the best to do that. And I bring all that up because I do want to make sure we mention your business and what you're doing now when it comes to disruptive leadership. Can you kind of speak on where the company is now, what you're doing for people, and I'll just kind of give you the floor a little bit to talk more about your business. I don't want to get too round on the politics part. I want to give you the opportunity to talk about disruptive leadership a little bit more, and then we'll kind of close out there.
Yeah, well, and I'm gonna literally touch on critical thinking and JD Vance.
Exactly, because it's the same,
Go
runs in
on.
the same, it
Yeah.
runs kind of in the same river.
So critical thinking, I believe, is necessary for us to make the most informed decisions because you have to critique, the information that you have in order to validate whether or not it's sound in order for you to make a great decision to get the positive result or outcome
Mhm.
that you want.
Yeah,
And so I think that's what JD Vance did. He gathered all the information at that time because he was an opponent of Trump and
yeah.
things of nature. He
And
had
his
to.
story, by the way, man, I mean, you wouldn't talk about like not having, you want to talk about like excusing having a difficult time, a difficult upbringing. Go look at JD Vance's
Yeah,
story.
yeah, yeah.
Look at his
And
story.
so he threw rocks, and this goes back to what you were saying about building your coat like following and what Trump did.
Mhm.
JD Vance was just throwing rocks at Donald Trump so that he could get his fan base on his side because you have to create a common enemy and you have to polarize yourself against that enemy. And so that's what JD Vance did. And so that's part of what we do within disruptive leadership. It's just
Ah,
helping
there we
people
go.
identify, hey, who are the big dogs? Who are the players in your industry? Who are the people
Mhm.
that's making enough noise and getting a lot of attention?
Right.
And helping them, one, become courageous enough to get out there and throw
Yeah.
rocks at whoever they're going to throw rocks
There
at,
you go, baby.
and be able to withstand the heat and the trauma that's going to come as a result of you throwing rocks.
Yeah.
And so you saw that, you probably saw a lot of that when I was talking about the Democratic Party, when I was talking about
Mhm.
Kamala Harris. My critique of Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party as a disruptive leader, it came from from the perspective of if if someone doesn't say something out loud that we're all thinking and talking about within our homes,
Exactly. Mhm.
we will continue to perpetuate the status quo and nothing will ever change. And
Mhm.
this is specifically for people of color because
Mhm.
I believe that there are strategic and systematic things that are done
Mhm.
to maintain oppression, albeit it's covert. It's a lot more covert today than it once was.
Mhm.
But I still believe we have to stand up and speak truth to power. And there were a lot of tactics that I saw that for me was pretty easy to see, but not a lot of people could recognize it. But then of those who even recognized it, not a lot of people would say anything.
Right.
And so because I'm the kind of person that loves to challenge the status quo, I love helping people challenge the status quo. I love helping people stand out. Because at the end of the day, man, the squeaky wheel gets the most attention,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Those that punted the system are always the ones that are remembered. If you look at Dr. Martin Luther King, Jesus, Mahatma Gandhi, you name it, the list continues to go on and
Mhm.
on and on. They were all rebels. None of them fit in. None of them just accepted things as they are.
Mhm.
And so that's what we do. We help you get clear on your target market. We help you get clear on your messaging and then positioning you with the credibility, the authority. It's for you to stand out and become a leader within your industry so that you can go out there and change lives. Get your own dreams and your desires. Of course,
Mhm.
if money is one of those things, yeah, we got to make money because money is very important.
Right.
But like we said, we want to make sure it's rooted in a deeper cause and a deeper reason why and a mission.
Yeah, and it's so I gotta tell you, Jay, it's so gratifying to hear a black male say that, and it was something that Charlie Kirk had said in the hundreds of videos I've watched about with Charlie Kirk, in which he talked about black fathers and black fatherlessness, and that needs to be more the concern than who's in office because he made us a point. Like again, you guys know Charlie Kirk, he go come with his facts.
Yeah.
So he said, look, black women married the government and left black men, and they've kind of forgotten about what we're about and the fact that what we want and our needs and things like that. So when I hear you talk about don't be afraid to buck the system. Don't be afraid to throw rocks. Do whatever you have to do to get the attention because you know you have the ability to follow up with whatever it is you're saying. So definitely from a black man to black man, definitely appreciate you bringing that up because we need more of that. And this one of the things I talk about on this show all the time is how much we have got to step into our boldness and stop being afraid of challenging authority. We have it, it's in us. Look at what we did, folks. Look at what we did. I mean, from Obama to 2 terms of Obama to even, when we said to ourselves, hey, this isn't working. We come together. We are the most powerful group of people. And I know I'm a little biased when I say that, but we can be the most powerful group of people because of our shared experiences and our ability to critically think and use our common sense, unwavering common sense to go after whatever it is that we need to go after. So, all that being said, I want to be respectful of your time. Can you just tell people how they get in touch with you? Where do you normally send people if they want to work with you? All that good stuff.
Yeah, I just tell people, man, just come and connect with me on any social media platform, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or Threads. Just find Jay Jackson. In my bio, you'll see where it says, I advise leaders to elevate their impact, income, and authority
Mhm.
without losing their damn minds. And so,
Yes, sir.
uh,
I said
just
common sense, folks. Remember, I said common sense.
Yeah, it's just, and that's what you're going to get from me. You're going to
All
get a
right.
no BS common sense approach to life and business. And if you're about change and transformation and making an impact, man, we can have a whole lot of fun together.
Absolutely. And all of that will be included in the show notes as well. So, Jay, the final thing I do to close out all the shows is I want you to use your imagination a little bit. You are back home. You just finished, you're back. I believe they call it, what do they call it? I want to make sure I get it right. When they don't send you back to the army, it starts with a R.
To my reintegration,
Not reintegration, deploy, not army.
deploy. Gotcha.
Deploy, yeah. So
Gotcha.
you're back home. You weren't deployed or whatever. I want to make
Yep.
sure you're getting the terms right. But anyway, you're free, you're here, you're able to do your thing, but you're depressed. You don't know what your next move is. You're going through whatever struggle it is you had mentioned earlier, obviously single dad, how you're going to make your car payments, all that. Pretend that version of Jay is back in the Zoom room. Give that young man some words of encouragement, and we will officially close.
Yeah. The one thing that I would say is it's going to take a lot longer than you thought. However, you're going to be better than you were when this all started. That would be the advice that I would give to that version of me.
Mhm,
Uh, you're courageous enough, you have the ability, you're good enough, you have the skills, you are already unique and different.
mhm.
And that uniqueness and that difference about you is what pisses people off.
Yeah.
Lean into that with all of your weight, and everything's going to be okay.
And that's it, guys. As promised on this show, whatever your challenge may be, the reason I close out with that question is because whatever your challenge is, whatever your obstacle is, whatever you feel like is in the way of whatever goal you may be having, we're here to indirectly tell you you're not going through it alone. Just keep on leaning into it. All right. Fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.